So the purpose of bringing people together here today on this retreat is manifold. One is that we have a brand new CCM. We have persons who have been voted to the CCM who do not necessarily have all the background that several others carry. Additionally, there are emerging issues. The Global Fund has drastically changed how it operates and wants us to adapt that in country. And in addition to that, we also realize that the CCM has a whole host of other pieces of work to do. And so we have to factor that into it. And then in addition, we need to be able to lay out a plan of action, When are we going to make site visits? How are we going to respond to emerging advocacy issues? All of these are things that we hope to achieve today.
Welcome goes out to everyone who made it possible this morning. And I just like to congratulate you. Now, the context within which this retreat has been organized is one where the need for information, CCM and the Global Fund processes looms high on the agenda. And to this end, it is my fervent wish that as we go through today's activities, it will be with a view to getting as much information and sharing as much information. So I'm asking that you all participate to the fullest in today's deliberations.
You're not here to just sit. You are here to consider and contribute. So participation is going to be very, very important. We're going to be focusing on what I think all of us want to come out of here knowing. So hopefully when we come out of here, we will come out knowing what is the role of the CCM, what is the role of the individual members within the CCM. Because I think that is what I'm getting as a major gap. And it's going to be very hard for us to move forward if every time we come back to who are we and why are we here. So we're going to try and aim towards that in this afternoon session.
As I said, the fiduciary arrangement for the Global Fund is to assist country by a rapid transfer of a large amount of resources made nearly to facilitate transfer to countries and to make a difference. It's really to focus on results. The CCM is meant to prepare and submit proposals. So this is almost all about the major change that happened. There is a lot said, and this global strategy has been reviewed after the high-level review panel. Here they are focusing in reducing death, saving lives, and reducing reinfection. And the ambition is to ensure 10 million lives, that 10 million lives are saved over the period 2012-2016. To better monitor the implementation, to better play our role of oversight. Human rights. Are we talking about human rights in the CCM? We need to also look at it. Yes, sir. I was in the NAC meeting last time, and the issue of human rights was raised, and it was a lot of discussion whether or not NAC has to focus on human rights. Expand CCM role to resource mobilization and sustainability. As you see, the role of Global Fund itself is to facilitate access to all the sorts of funding. So CCM should not be there only to manage the Global Fund, but also to make sure that the gain that we have made from the Global Fund is sustained with regard to resource mobilization to fund the response and secure the gain that we have made through Global Fund.
Where there is high prevalence in STI clinic attendees, right? Not STI, antenatal, ANC clinic attendees. And right now, our antenatal clinic attendees, the prevalence is 1.2%. And that's what we usually use to generalize to say that that's what it's reflecting in general population, right? So a concentrated epidemic is where it's higher in key populations. And so we know that 32% among MSM or 33%, 4.1 among sex workers, etc., etc. 34% among female drug users, those kinds of, that's where we're talking about a concentrated epidemic. So we know HIV prevalence among public antenatal and STI clinic attendees has declined. Improving access to public health facilities and education through the removal of dues and tuition fees was a major step in reducing household expenses in 2008. And of course, everybody's heard about the added pressure on the government system in terms of the number of persons accessing services. The National HIV/AIDS Workplace Policy was adopted by Parliament in 2010. National Policy for Gender Equality, which was adopted by Cabinet in 2011. Is that right, Sharon? Yes. The Act to amend the Constitution of Jamaica to provide a Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms was adopted in 2010. The Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms seeks to broaden the grounds of non-discrimination to include male and female. This was absent from the 1962 Jamaica Constitution. And why is this important to the HIV program? Because we're talking about gender equality and gender issues as some drivers of the epidemic. So these things, these issues are what we are also talking about when we're talking about achieving our human rights framework. Because those patrons, you can only get them at the sex work sites in the hands, right? No, the sex workers, you can get them. Say it's a club. If it's a club, you can get those sex work patrons. However, if it's not a club, then how do you get those sex work patrons? You get them through targeting of general population. How do you target general population? Money is not available for general population targeting, apart from the general media campaign. Our general media campaign now must say, if you go to a sex work site, basically, if I'm just going to use the basic data, if you go to a sex work site, you're at higher risk of contracting HIV. Is that what I want to do? That's not what I want to do. However, basically, the risk is right there. So how do we model? And I think that's what needs to also go in the parking lot. How do we model interventions to really target the risk behaviors? Because again, our sex work patrons, our sex work clients are those who are less vulnerable to HIV just based on their socioeconomic, their demographics. However, they are more vulnerable to HIV because they go to a high-risk site. And so how do I now go into a home or get on the television when every single ad that we do with targets, pinch, leave, and inch and roll for youngsters, and it's still a problem, even though you know you need to target youngsters. They debate about it every day, and the only person who should respond is the CCM should be responding to these issues. Listen, this is where the NHP doesn't usually defend. There are things we just do it because we have to do it, because that's where the public health risk is. However, what does the CCM have to say? Does the CCM think that they have a role to play in defending the reason why we put those ads out there? Who are the advocates for evidence-based responses? And what are they willing to defend in a public forum? Are they willing to defend the need to repeal the Harbour law? Are they willing to defend the need to target 10 to 14 sexually active youngsters? I mean, I think we talk to Ministry of Education about this all the time. And I'm really, to me, I'm saying, and I'm not even for anarchy, but we've had so many meetings about how do we target our young people. And we're saying that they spend 80% of their time in schools, right? And if they spend 80% of their time in schools, where are they going to access that condom? They're definitely not walking to the public health center to access a condom. And what the ministry is saying is that we're a no-sex zone, despite the fact that all the porn that the kids have on their phones shows that they've had the sex at schools. In 2004 to establish prevalence in the prisons, right? And we established that at 3.3%. So we know that it's high-risk individuals that usually end up in prison, right? So on that premise, we're saying, listen, 3.3%, and you're in a closed environment, etc., etc. As you see, the repeal of the Harbour law has implications for a number of other sectors. And why I'm saying that is that the repeal of the Harbour law is the only reason that we can't have a prevention program that's comprehensive in the prisons. And so it's almost that burying yourself in the sand. again, prevention program and effectiveness. We know that on average, a person might spend 6 years. The average inmate spends 6 years in prison. They then come back out and they're reported as, how would I put it? They're going back out to their main partner. They may have a partner from prison. They may have new partners. They have had no access to condoms, but we're only linking the Bulgarian law to MSM that's identified as MSM. And we're not looking at the larger implication of what the repeal of the Bulgarian law would mean to prevention. And then we're talking also that these persons, because our high prevalence communities are the violence prone communities, and most of the men that end up in prison go back to these violence prone, high prevalence communities. So why is it a high prevalence community? Because these people have come back as ex-inmates, ex-convicts. What is it that makes it a high prevalence community? Again, how do you target that? Because I could have gone into the prison and provided condoms and said, listen, this is what is happening. But no condoms. Effective prevention really means that a number of other players need to sit at this table and need to really participate. When a grant reaches the end of its implementation period, there are tasks that we need to undertake, right? And most of these tasks don't extend to the CCM in terms of the underground stuff. But of course, oversight is always the responsibility of the CCM. So, what we need to know as a CCM, that service delivery or programmatic activities must stop by the grant end date. And when is the grant end date? July 2013. July 2013. So we need to wind down the grant in an orderly and ethical way. So that means that for all the agencies that are the sub-recipients under the grant, including the principal recipient, you need to know what every agency, and this is my recommendation, you need to know what every agency is doing in terms of their staffing, because it would mean a lot of displacement of staff. The grant has afforded us the ability to have supported a number of human resource costs for a number of agencies involved, including almost 100% of some agencies. And so therefore we need to think about what the implications are for those agencies and ensure that the agencies have prepared their staff. Otherwise it's going to be a reflection on the CCM when all of these people are out there saying, we just drop them. The definition of sustainability, their proposed definition should outline the following: the organization and its brand, which is the Jamaica CCM, the core business of the CCM, the key strategic program areas, future sustainability of the human capital, the future sustainability of grant activities, and financial sustainability to achieve all of that. Suggested strategies for sustainability should look at organizational fundraising, program fundraising. I assume organizational suppleness means flexibility and responsiveness. Sustainability-led planning, collaboration, integration, building reserves, and the PR can think of other strategies. And I propose it's not the PR who should be thinking of other strategies. And that's it.
Now the manual is divided in 5 sections. Dr. Sumset dealt with section 1 very comprehensively this morning, and section 2 outlines the measures that will be taken to promote good governance, and that's the focus of section 2, good governance. Section 3 describes the organization and management arrangements. Section 4 records the planning and implementation standards, and section 5 has to do with conflict of interest. Going in that direction, table 2, 3, 4, and 5, you're going to take the items as listed from 1 to 5 and pay close attention to them. Now, I must tell you that when I was assigned this task, I started to take a more serious look at the manual. And interestingly, there are some things I did not see. And I'm now realizing how serious a responsibility I have. as a member of the CCM. And all along I thought I had a fair grasp of the manual, but then when it was assigned and I take a look at it, I start to wonder if I want to continue to be a member of the CCM. Now this thing is serious, and I don't think that we have really taken that serious look at it. Glad that our section is sparking that kind of interest. C. Listen to how heavy C is. Be fully conversant with the national policies on HIV. That's not too bad. The national HIV strategic plan. That's not too bad. But the other relevant policies and programmatic framework, that's heavy. Almost unrealistic for someone who does not work in this field to be familiar with all these policies, not so much the HIV policies and the national strategic plan, but the other relevant policies. A heavy thing, it's possible, but very difficult. Let's go to one that we find quite interesting, and that is, let me see, is it D?
Yeah.
D. Respect the decision-making process and support all decisions taken.
Well, this was raised. I think the issue, the concern, not issue, but the concern that we have is really with the use of the word support. And our discussion support all decisions taken, because our discussion is really centered around it. I'll use myself as an example. I'm obviously not here as an individual, but I'm here representing the Ministry of Education. So Anarchy's views will be very different sometimes from the Ministry of Education, and I have to represent the sector, the education sector. And there may be decisions that will be taken by JCCM, which as the education rep, I could not support. So the question was, what happens in such instances? Do we need to add something else to this, which addresses that somehow?
Group 2 dealt with 2 sections. One is appointment of members, and I'll do that first. Just to mention that we didn't get a chance to really, I think, properly ventilate and go through all of the different subsections. But what we did highlight is what I'm going to just share with you now. So I just want to say that this is not a thorough review of everything. This section dealing with appointment of members is where we speak about who are the various representatives, how many representatives must come from each of the groups. So one of the major things that we highlighted is that there seems to be an unwritten assumption that the reps, for example, from the marked population, will represent more than one constituency. Because if you go down to the bottom of the page where it gives the description, and a part that deals with key affected population, there are 10 subgroups, but yet only 3 reps. So it almost is an unwritten assumption that, for example, the NGO sector, some of those 5 reps may also represent some of those subpopulations that are not going to be a part of the Section 8 people representing key population, those 3.
No matter what group you represent,
you need to see what it's like to go and speak to sex workers at 11 o'clock at night. You need to go and see treatment centers when a dying mother, which still happens, needs to find somewhere to put her child. You need to see that. So it impacts you on a personal level and makes you understand what this really means.
This work is all about. Good ending point for that session. Thank you very much, Yalna. Thank you very much, groups. I hope you are now much better informed about our role, function, the whole CCM. Anybody still have any questions?
Okay, my name is Howard Gow, and with me is Miss Audrey Osborne, and we are both from Richmond Fellowship, Jamaica, operators of Patricia House, and we sit as second vice chair on the JCCM. The expectation for the meeting, I think, were met. And what I had in mind was a deepening of the knowledge base surrounding issues concerning the CCM. And I think, judging from the reactions at the end of the day, I think those objectives were met. And we heard words like overwhelmingly met. And I would like to share that view. Even for myself, my knowledge base has been deepened concerning the CCM.
Yes, the whole role and where the shortfalls or where the gaps are as it relates to the JCCM, as it relates to the Global Fund, and the way forward was very interesting because persons have accepted the gaps or the flaws that existed, and the commitment is there to work on addressing those issues.
So,
And the manual was a very significant part of the deliberations today, and I think that contributed a whole lot to the knowledge base of persons here today.
You know, one of the things I found impressive was the level of volunteerism at the end. When you look at the construction of the committees or subcommittees, the flow, the smoothness, and the level of cooperation, I find that impressive, and it makes going forward more hopeful.
Dr. Pierre Somse, UNAIDS country coordinator for Jamaica, Belize, and Bahamas. The expectation was to give my best, to really offer the best of the expertise of my organization for the successful retreat. And I can say that I'm really satisfied, and I have been part of the preparation of this retreat. And I can say that this is one of the most successful meetings that I have ever attended. Because all the expectation, the objective and expected outcome have been achieved.
Hi, I'm Yalna Broderick from Women for Women. The CCM retreat lived up to all my expectations. Information that I did not have before was presented in a very clear and concise manner. Conversations were interesting because where we have the technical expertise among the CCM, a lot of them do not have the on-the-ground experience, which now we are going to remedy by allowing persons who always see the work being done and monitor them, be seeing what the on-the-ground persons do. So I believe that we have charted a way forward that will give positive results.
I'm Sanya Sutherland. I'm with the National HIV STI Program, and I represent the PR on the Jamaica CCM. I was very glad today to see that the meeting met its objectives. Our first retreat of its kind, where we tried to sensitize all the stakeholders as to what their roles and responsibilities are, where they need to think about what their individual roles are in their capacities as individuals, as well as in their representation of their organizations, and how they interact, or what is their role in the national response to HIV, and how that feeds into the CCM. I think that we met those expectations, met those objectives of the meeting, and I'm very glad to say that most participants seem to be very happy with the outcomes, and were even able to articulate some of the issues that are affecting them as part of the CCM, and how they see themselves in their role and what they need to do in order to carry out those functions efficiently and effectively. I was really heartened to hear from the CCM members that they felt that they had really been handheld by the principal recipient, and that they were ready to function effectively as the Jamaica CCM, and felt empowered to do that as a result of this retreat. I also felt really elated about the fact that the organizations were really thinking about what the target populations that are the populations that are targeted by the national response to HIV and what the prevention and treatment and all the tenets of the national response, how those actually affect the populations, what are the barriers to access to services, etc., and all the real stuff from the National Strategic Plan, that they were able to think about that I had provided that new perspective, that the CCM had provided that new perspective, and they had been, they'd been given a new vision, new insight into where they need to go. So, in all, I felt it was very effective, highly rewarding, and that's it.
Okay, I'm Marlon Taylor, and I represent the Sex Work Association of Jamaica. Coming here today at the Jamaica Country Coordinating Mechanism meeting, I came with a kind of open mind to the process. I came wanting also to know what was the role of the sex workers being a part of the CCM, and that expectation was met. Have a clearer idea as to what the CCM is all about and where the CCM wants to go and what it wants to see for the country of Jamaica with the Global Fund and all other funding that will aid or assist persons living with or affected by HIV.
Good afternoon, good day. I'm Rochelle Campbell. I'm a youth with the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network. Coming into this retreat today, I was really looking forward to, I know about the CCM, but grasping more about the CCM, getting more into how it works and what we have to do as members of the CCM. And I'm really glad we got to be here to really go through things like the manual and our way forward. We got to really tear it apart and see how better can we be functioning, what more can we be doing to move forward as a group, and as a group that should be trying to run a national program. I'm really happy we got to get all that done, and I'm looking forward to working more with the CCM and doing bigger and better things. Thank you.
We are pleased with how today unfolded. We're pleased with the level of participation. We're pleased with the number of persons who came out. All our sectors were represented and were well represented. And that is a very promising indication. I think most importantly, what we got from today is not only the investment of the sectors, but we also were able to hammer out a roadmap. What will happen next? And so the formation of subcommittees to deal with advocacy and communication, the formation of another subcommittee to deal with resource mobilization, are just but two examples of the investment people have in making this go forward. It is very clear that the CCM has transcended the Global Fund and has positioned itself to be able to manage grants coming into Jamaica in general. And so it's a whole lot of work to be done. But as you saw from today's commitment, people are invested and will make this happen. So upwards and onwards.